328 is widely considered one of the most reliable classic Ferraris. An evolution of the 308, which was launched in 1975, it's a relatively simple car, free from troublesome electronics. The V8 engine in the 328 is essentially the same that was used in the 308 Quattro valve, but with an increased capacity of 3,185 cc or 3.2 liters. The engine retained the Bosch K-Jetronic fuel injection that was used in the 308, but the ignition was upgraded to the Marelli system. The 328 GTS continued production for 4 years before being replaced by the 348 in 1989. Over 6,000 units were produced, with the GTS outnumbering the GTB models almost 5 to 1. The Ferrari 308 was made famous by Tom Selleck in Magnum P.I, and it was basically the 308 that brought Ferrari to the masses. It made it extremely popular. Well, if you want the look of a 308, but with a little more oomph, then the 328 is definitely the way to go. It has some subtle upgrades that visually the purists would definitely know the difference, but to the average person, it's still the Magnum P.I car, but with just a little more power and a little more performance. Visually, the biggest difference you can see between the 308 and 328 right off the bat is the bumpers. So on the 308, especially on the US versions, they have these big matte black bumpers. And on the 328, they have recessed them and integrated them, making the whole shape of the car a little more rounded and soft, whereas the 308 has a much more pronounced wedge shape. Plus the bumpers are color coordinated, so no matter what color the car is, the bumper is going to match on the 328. And there's a lot of little subtle differences, but that's the big one where even from far away, you can look and see it drive by and go, that's a 308 or 328. One of the upgrades they did on the 328 is the ABS braking system. And it's not on all 328s. They started it in 1988 and a half. So halfway through the year, they started putting it on their cars. One of the ways you can tell, if you look in the door panel of this car, it has a little data plate that shows the year and the month that the car was manufactured. However, on a car like this, it was made in June. So that's right at the cusp. You can't tell if it's going to be ABS or not. So you look at the wheels, and the wheels on a non-ABS car, the stars are completely flat, whereas on one with the ABS, like this one, they're convex. They actually have a little bend outwards to them. So visually, that's one way to tell the difference. They made a lot of subtle improvements to the interior on the 328. So they changed up the seats, they changed up the door panels. The big one is probably the center console. The parking brake used to be right here, and it had all these toggle switches. And me personally, when I would release the parking brake, my knuckles would rap against all the toggle switches sticking up. So what they've done is they made them a lot more flush and modern looking. And in the 80s, it was a much more modern feel for the car. The 328 has about 270 horsepower, which by modern standards is not that fast, especially when you compare it to new cars like the 812 with over 800 horsepower. But in the 80s, this car was very quick. And when you drive a 308 and then you drive a 328, you can definitely feel that bump in horsepower. It's definitely a quicker car. And if you're going for pure speed, the 328 is the car to choose over the 308. Now, they're both extremely fun, and the gated shift is just irreplaceable. I mean, something about having a gated shift and having no power steering, it makes you feel very in tune with the car. And on modern cars, a lot of times with all the electronics and everything, you really just feel like you're sitting in the driver's seat behind the wheel and the car is taking you for a ride. Whereas the older cars like this, you feel so in control, and it's just a different kind of driving experience. This car has been owned by the same person since 1995, and the odometer currently shows 8,200 miles. Now, we know for a fact that that's not the true mileage because the car was shipped to Switzerland, had the odometer and speedometer changed to kilometers, and then it was shipped back throughout the years and got switched back to miles. And every time that happened, the odometer got reset. So the funny thing is, it's not uncommon at all for that to happen with these cars, but it's usually this big question mark because these cars tend to change hands so frequently and the facts get lost with time and it becomes a big question mark on the car. But the nice thing about this one is since it's been one owner for so long, we know exactly when that happened and what happened and why. So it's always nice to know the backstory behind these cars. Ferrari enthusiasts might have heard of the Ferrari Classiche program, and basically it's where Ferrari will come out and they will certify your car and say that it has the correct engine, transmission, brakes, all the important parts. So when you get that done, you get this book, and it's the red book, the Ferrari Classiche book. It has the data plate with the VIN number of your car, and on the inside are all the photos of the various parts and a build sheet that shows does it have the correct motor, yes or no, with the numbers and all the information to show that your car is original and how it's supposed to be. And the nice thing too is it has all these photos of the parts. So if you get this done and then years later sell the car, the buyer can look and know that it's the same as it was when the book was first done. And this book is not cheap. It's $10,000 to $15,000, depending on the kind of car, the price varies. It's usually not done on cars like 328 simply because of the price of the car versus the price of the book. But having it done definitely adds value to the car. And it's just that extra level of security for a buyer to know that they are buying a true original Ferrari without the modifications. I had such an awesome time driving this car. It is fast, it's fun, and it's just a great car to drive. So I hope you guys have enjoyed watching this video. And if you did, please subscribe, like, and stay tuned for a lot more content we have coming very soon.